Good Friday morning to you. It's Mrs. Blanca Beckler. I wanted to say good morning, and we're going to go over lesson 3.08. There we go. I think I adjusted that a little bit better. I hope you can see the screen. I'm going to kind of be sliding this up and back so you can see it a little bit better. But we're doing this lesson via YouTube because I am at a field trip. So I hope you guys have a great Friday. This lesson is 3.08, which is function operations. And basically operations mean mathematical combinations. So we're going to add, subtract, multiply, and divide our functions. Okay? So those are the four operations, and this is the notation for those. For adding, you'll see f plus g together in parentheses of x. For subtraction, you'll see f minus g of x, or you might see g minus f of x. You'll see multiplication, which will either be g with an f and a g right next to each other, or oftentimes you'll see the multiplication symbol in between. And the final one is division, where you'll see f of g, then the x on the outside. So notice all these operations are in parentheses, and that's how you can distinguish those. So those are the four function operations. Now let's look at how to apply those function operations to actual problems. So let's start with the first one. We're going to take the function f of x, which is x plus 8. And the g of x function is going to be, g of x is negative 4x. Now, let's see if you guys can see that. I'll slide it a little bit closer. Okay, there we go. So there are two function operations. The first operation we're going to do is just simply add those two functions together. So to add those two functions, we would just take x plus 4 plus negative 4x. And then we just combine our like terms together. So x and negative 4x is negative 3x. Bring down our positive 4. And we're done. And there's the sum of those two. So the final answer is negative 3x plus 4. Okay. Now let's try another operation. And I'm actually going to grab another pen because that one's not very dark. Let's try just simple subtraction. So we're just going to take, this time I'm going to switch it up though. I'm going to say g of x minus f of x. So I'm going to take my g function, which is negative 4x, and I'm going to subtract the f of x function. So it's going to be noted as g minus f of x equals negative 4 minus the whole function, x plus 8. And notice I put parentheses around that binomial, because what's going to happen is I'm going to have to distribute. So I bring down my negative 4x, I distribute this negative into the parentheses, so I get minus x minus 8, combine my like terms, negative 5x minus 8 is the difference of those two functions with g of x minus f of x. Okay, so there's subtraction. So 2 down, 2 to go. Now we're going to look at multiplying the functions. Well, we know order of operations doesn't matter on multiplying. So f of f times g of x is the same thing as g times f of x, right? Because we know order doesn't matter. So it doesn't really matter. But I'm just going to go ahead and do f times g of x. So I'm going to take x plus 8 times negative 4x. Now we're just going to simply distribute in our monomial, and we get negative 4x squared, right? X times x is x squared. Negative 4x times positive 8, negative 32x. And there is the product. Okay? Very simple. Multiplying the functions together. Now let's try division. Okay, now we know division, the order does matter. So let's look at this one. let's take f divided by g of x. So that means on top, I'm going to have to put the x plus 8. And on the bottom, I put the g function, which is negative 4x. So, is there any simplifying I can do? Not really. Because you can only divide if the whole binomial up here is divisible by negative 4x. So there we go. We're done. Now, we do have to think about what do we have to eliminate from the denominator. Well, we know the denominator can never be 0. So when is 4x equal to 0? Negative 4x equal to 0. Divide by negative 4, divide by negative 4, only when x is 0. So we have to eliminate that in our domain. So this is the function where x can't be 0, right? X can't be 0, and that's going to come into play in just a minute. So there we go. Those are the 4 operations with the function. Now let's look at applying those. Let's put that into an application problem. Let's say that you're very industrious and you're going to sell widgets. Well, what's a widget? A widget is just a widget. Anyway, we have 2 equations. We have a revenue equation, R, and we have a cost equation, C. Now, we're going to try to figure out what profit we're making. Well, revenue is the money coming in, cost is the money going out. So if we sell widgets and make $500, we don't get to keep all $500 because remember we had to pay for those widgets to start with. So if you spent $300 on the widgets but sold them for $500, you made a profit of $200. So our function equation, we're going to have to take our revenue and subtract the cost to actually figure out the profit. So let's look at the equations that we have. Our revenue is 60x minus x squared, and yes, that is an x. And our cost is 120 plus 2x. Now we're going to use our function operation to figure out our profit. So we're going to take our revenue minus the cost, revenue minus, and remember that's a binomial and we're subtracting a binomial, so put parentheses around that one, 120 plus 2x. Now let's distribute the negative and simplify. So 60x minus x squared just comes down, distribute the negative in, minus 120 minus 2x. Let's simplify all that mess. Bring our x squared down because we want to put it in descending order. Highest exponent first. Now, let's turn that light away from you guys. 60x minus 2x. That's going to give us positive 58x. And then bring down our constant, negative 120. And there is our profit equation. Okay, now let's say you sold 20 widgets. 20 widgets. How much money did you make? So, we're actually going to plug in for x, 20. So, let's slide this over. We're going to plug in x equals 20 into this equation. So, negative 20 squared minus 58 times 20 minus 120. Let's see what we get. Grab your handy dandy calculator. Here's mine. Voila. Okay, I know 20 squared is 400. So we have negative 400 minus now this sounds way too negative to me. 1160 minus 120. And that is way negative. What did we do wrong? Let me look.